My name is Emily Baker, and I work as a customer service representative at Bright Tech Solutions in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. When I first joined the team, I felt excited and hopeful. Helping customers solve their problems brought me joy. However, lately things have changed. The atmosphere in the office feels heavy, and whispers echo behind my back. I've noticed a group of coworkers laughing quietly when I walk by, which makes my heart sink. I try to focus on my tasks, but the anxiety gnaws at me. I know I must face this challenge even though it feels daunting. Just last week, I faced a difficult situation that made me question my abilities as a customer service representative. It started on a Tuesday morning when my manager, Ms. Thompson, called me into her office. My stomach tightened as I knocked on her door, unsure of why I was being summoned. I took a deep breath, hoping for good news but preparing for the worst. "Emily, I need to talk to you about your performance," Ms. Thompson began, her tone serious. My heart raced and I felt a wave of panic wash over me. Did I make a mistake? Was I failing at my job? I nodded, trying to swallow my anxiety. She continued, "We've had some feedback about your last few customer calls. You need to work on your approach, especially when handling complaints." As she spoke, my mind raced with thoughts. I replayed those calls in my head. There had been a few tough customers, but I believed I managed well enough. Did they really think I was incompetent? I began to doubt myself. I had always prided myself on my customer skills, but what if I wasn't good enough? What if I let my team down? After the meeting, I returned to my desk, feeling defeated. The usual hustle and bustle of the office faded away. I could see my coworkers chatting and laughing, but I felt isolated. Were they gossiping about me? I took a moment to compose myself, reminding myself to focus on my tasks despite my swirling emotions. As I sat down, I noticed a customer waiting for assistance on my screen. I clicked to accept the call, and the cheerful voice of Mr. Jacobs came through. "Hi there. I have a problem with my order, and I hope you can help." I tried to sound upbeat, but anxiety buzzed in the background. My heart pounded again as he explained his issue. Mr. Jacobs, can you clarify what the problem is?" I asked, wishing my voice didn't tremble. His tone shifted slightly, revealing frustration. "I received the wrong item, and this has happened before. What are you going to do about it?" My cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I struggled to articulate the steps I needed to take. I could feel the tension growing like a weight on my shoulders pushing me down. I stumbled through the process, trying to follow the script we were taught. Each moment felt longer than the last, and my mind raced with self-doubt. What if I mess this up again? It would just add to what Ms. Thompson said. The anxiety wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. As I tried to remain calm, I fumbled for solutions. I could sense that Mr. Jacobs was getting frustrated. After what felt like an eternity, I finally managed to reassure him that I would personally make sure he received the correct item. "I will do my best to fix this by the end of the day," I promised, trying to instill confidence into both him and myself. But as soon as I hung up the call, a wave of relief crashed into me, mixing with a lingering sense of failure for not delivering a smoother experience. Why did I have to work so hard to keep my confidence up? Why did my self-doubt feel like a constant shadow? As the rest of my day passed, I could still hear Ms. Thompson's words echo in my mind. It felt like I was carrying a heavy burden, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had a long way to go before I truly found my footing in this job. The days following my tough conversation with Ms. Thompson continued to get harder. By Friday, I could feel the pressure building around me. As I entered the office, an email from Ms. Thompson caught my eye. It was a notice about an important project meeting scheduled for Monday morning. She wanted every team member to prepare a report on our recent customer service metrics, including how we handled complaints. My heart sank. The report was due in just 3 days, and I felt like I was already carrying a heavy load. I hadn't even finished processing all the feedback from my last customer interactions, and now I had to compile data and present it to my team. The thought of speaking in front of everyone made my stomach churn. Each tick of the clock seemed to push my anxiety higher. During lunch, I overheard a group of my colleagues chatting about the upcoming meeting. Their laughter stung as I joined them, trying to act casual. I wanted to join in the fun, but the worry felt like a wall between us. Jenna, a colleague who was always confident, spoke loudly about how she was prepared for the meeting. "I've been collecting data all week. I can't wait to show off my work," she said with a grin. Her self-assurance made me shrink even smaller inside. If she was so ready, what would happen to me? I worried I would embarrass myself in front of everyone. After lunch, the workload increased further. I had several customer calls waiting for me, and each seemed more complex than the last. One customer, Mrs. Williams, called in a panic. "I can't access my account. I've tried everything," she exclaimed. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. But my mind raced with self-doubt. What if I couldn't fix her problem? I worried that if I fumbled again, it would only add to the stories circulating about me behind my back. I tried to follow the steps I learned, but my hands felt like they were shaking as I typed. When Mrs. Williams continued to express her frustration, panic crept in. "I will help you, Mrs. Williams," I said, but my voice wavered. "Please hold on while I check your account." It felt like the walls were closing in on me, and for the first time, I was not sure I could handle it. As the day went on, my stress grew. I made it through calls, but it felt like a battle I was losing. When I finally had a moment to breathe, I looked at my incomplete report. The numbers blurred before my eyes, and a wave of frustration washed over me. I wanted to be the confident employee I had once been, but the insecurities weighed heavily on my heart. Suddenly, I thought about Ms. Thompson's words. I remembered how she said improvement comes through challenges, but then I questioned, was I really improving? I closed my eyes for a moment, struggling to find answers. I knew I could not keep standing still, allowing fear to dictate my actions. There had to be a way through this. Digging deep, I agreed with myself it was time to change my approach. I reminded myself that I needed support from others instead of isolating myself. I decided to reach out to Jenna. Perhaps she would share how she prepared her report. I could also ask my manager for advice, showing that I was ready to step up instead of shrinking away. This was about me growing, not just making it through another day. No matter how hard things seemed, I would face the challenges ahead with determination and a renewed sense of hope. Monday morning came faster than I expected, and the feeling in my stomach twisted tighter with each passing minute. As I walked into the meeting room, I could see my coworkers gathered around the table. Their confident chatter highlighted the anxiety bubbling inside me. I took a deep breath, reassuring myself that this was my opportunity to rise above my fears. When Ms. Thompson walked in, her presence instantly commanded everyone's attention. I felt my heart thumping loudly in my chest as she glanced around the room. "Good morning, everyone. Let's get started." My mind raced, preparing for what felt like a storm. I had gathered all my notes, put together the customer service metrics, and thought long and hard about my approach. Still, self-doubt whispered in the back of my mind. What if I stumbled over my words? What if they saw me as a failure? As the meeting unfolded, several of my colleagues took turns presenting their summaries. Jenna went first, confidently sharing her success stories and detailed analysis. The energy in the room was infectious, and each applause from the group made my heart sink even more. When my name was called, my stomach sank. "Emily, would you like to present next?" There was no turning back. With trembling legs, I stood up and walked to the front of the room. I could feel all eyes on me as I fumbled to set up my notes. It took every ounce of courage within me to lift my gaze and speak. Hello everyone. I'm going to share my report now," I began, attempting to anchor myself in the moment. As I shared my findings, I noticed the audience's expressions turn from casual interest to focused attention. I spoke about the challenges I faced while handling customer complaints and how I learned from each situation. My nervousness showed itself through the occasional tremor in my voice, but then I recalled the conversations I had with Mrs. Williams and Mr. Jacobs. They were real people with real needs, and I wanted to help them. This realization fueled my determination. As I continued, I learned the importance of listening and understanding our customers better. I highlighted my plans for improving my process and mentioned how collaboration could help uplift our entire team. With every word, I felt my confidence grow. Soon, the fear that threatened to engulf me began to fade into the background, replaced by clarity and focus. Just as I was finishing my presentation, I made eye contact with Ms. Thompson. I could see a hint of reassurance in her smile, which ignited a spark in me. I took a breath and reminded myself that this moment mattered. Then, unexpectedly, Jenna asked me a question that made my heart race again. "Emily, how do you plan on applying what you've learned to future customer interactions?" For a second, all the self-doubt surged back, but I stood tall. I plan on reaching out to my colleagues for guidance and feedback. We all face challenges, but together, we can learn from them and improve our service. The meeting room fell silent for a moment, then I noticed nods of approval around the table. A wave of relief washed over me. I had embraced my vulnerability and turned it into a strength. I was no longer just Emily sitting quietly in the background. I had stepped forward into my power as an employee. After I concluded my presentation, the melee of emotions coursed through me. I realized I had not just faced my fears, but had transformed them into a drive for improvement. This was my breaking point. A moment of growth that shifted my perspective on both my career and my self-worth. I could choose to face challenges head-on, and I knew I was ready to rise to any occasion that lay ahead. As I finished my presentation, a mix of relief and exhilaration flooded through me. The tension that had clenched my chest gradually loosened, and I finally felt like I had proven something to myself. The room exploded into applause, and I could hear whispers of encouragement floating around the table. My cheeks flushed with warmth, but instead of feeling shy, I let the moment sink in. This was a moment of triumph. Miss Thompson looked pleased, nodding approvingly as she smiled. "Emily, thank you for your insights. I appreciate your openness about your learning process." Her words spiraled through my mind, both thrilling and grounding. For the first time, I felt valued in the workplace, not for getting everything right, but for being willing to learn and collaborate. I was no longer just the unsure employee. I was a team player ready to make things better. After the meeting, as we dispersed, I noticed Jenna approaching me. I felt a wave of apprehension wash over me. What would she say? To my surprise, she smiled warmly. "Great job, Emily. I liked how you shared your plans to improve. It takes courage to be so open." Her compliment felt like ice melting under the sun. I had always viewed her as a measuring stick for my own abilities, but here she stood, recognizing my growth and effort. As I walked back to my desk, I felt lighter, buoyed by the admiration of my coworkers. A quick message from Mrs. Williams popped up on my screen, reminding me of my earlier struggle. "Thanks for helping me, Emily. I really appreciate your patience and quick resolution." Her words filled me with a fresh wave of optimism. Maybe I was making a difference after all. However, as I settled back into my routine, the anxiety that once loomed over me still lingered at the edge of my mind. Just as I allowed myself to bask in the moment, a notification pinged loudly. Another customer call waiting in line. My heart picked up its pace, but this time I felt more prepared. With the courage I had gained from my presentation, I approached the call differently. When I picked up the line, it was a rather upset caller named Mr. Lewis. He had an issue with a recent order, and at first my stomach tightened in fear. But then I remembered my resolve from that morning. "Mr. Lewis, I understand how frustrating this must be for you. Can you tell me about the problem, and I will do my best to help." I leaned into my newfound abilities, listening, communicating, and ensuring that he knew I was genuinely there to assist him. As our conversation progressed, even Mr. Lewis began to calm down. I could see the value of the support I just received during the meeting. Handling the call felt more natural, and within minutes, I guided him through the steps to resolve his issue. By the end of our conversation, he thanked me, sounding far more relaxed than when we first spoke. It became clear to me that I had the tools to navigate difficult situations with grace. This was more than just a normal day at work. It was a turning point. I realized how crucial it was to act rather than react. Confidence and determination were qualities I could nurture, not just traits of others. I would face obstacles, but with each challenge came a chance to grow. Through teamwork, understanding, and sometimes, a willingness to be vulnerable. My journey was just beginning, but now I felt equipped to face whoever or whatever came next with my head held high. The days that followed the meeting felt transformative. I spent the rest of that week riding the wave of my accomplishments and the renewed sense of purpose that came with it. I made a point to engage more with my colleagues, asking questions, offering help, and sharing my own experiences. Each interaction seemed to solidify the boost of confidence I had gained. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in the break room with Jenna. We were enjoying our lunches when I decided to share my feelings about the meeting with her. I honestly didn't expect such a positive reaction, I admitted, my heart racing slightly. I thought everyone would judge me. Instead, I feel like I belong. Jenna smiled knowingly. That's what happens when you step out of your comfort zone. Everyone has doubts sometimes, but facing them can bring unexpected support. Her words made me realize that the pressure I had felt wasn't as isolating as I imagined. My coworkers had their own struggles, and many of them battled similar feelings of doubt. I felt a stronger connection to them. Later that week, I decided to have a chat with Ms. Thompson. I wanted to know her thoughts after my presentation and share how I felt about my progress. As I entered her office, she looked up from her paperwork and smiled. "Emily, I've been meaning to talk to you. You handled the presentation remarkably well. Your willingness to learn from experiences truly shines through." I took a deep breath, preparing for her feedback. "Thank you, Ms. Thompson. I've realized I have much to grow, and I want to embrace these opportunities. I used to worry too much about making mistakes, but now I feel different. I believe I can learn from each situation." With that, Ms. Thompson leaned forward. "Everyone makes mistakes, Emily. The key is to approach them as a chance for growth rather than a failure. You've already taken a huge step towards improvement, not only for yourself but also for your teammates. Keep this mindset." Her words resonated deeply. It was more than just a job now. I had evolved into a part of something bigger, a cohesive team. The thought made me feel stronger emotionally, and I recognized that my contributions mattered. I was not just navigating my role, but becoming an integral part of our workplace culture. As the days went by, I noticed how my interactions shifted. I felt less intimidated by difficult customers and even began to enjoy the challenge of resolving their issues. My sessions with troubled customers turned into learning opportunities instead of sources of anxiety. Every call I took became a chance to practice empathy and communication. By the end of that month, I sought feedback from several customers and even asked my colleagues for their perspectives. Their support helped me to see my strengths and identify areas for growth. When a particularly challenging call came through, I found myself smiling as I approached the situation with fresh eyes. Instead of worrying about what could go wrong, I focused on what I could learn and how I could make the customer's experience better. The development I experienced extended beyond work. My confidence began to bleed into my daily life, affecting how I approached my relationships and challenges outside of the office. I realized that embracing vulnerability opens doors to growth, not just at work, but in all areas of life. I had discovered the value of persistence, and for the first time, I felt capable of navigating whatever obstacles lay ahead with resilience and determination. Each step I took, whether big or small, was no longer just about the destination but about the growth along the journey. As I settled into my role at Bright Tech Solutions after several weeks of growth, I felt a noticeable shift in my attitude toward work. Mornings, which used to fill me with dread, now sparked excitement. Each day felt like another opportunity to tackle challenges head-on, to engage with customers, and to support my team. I could feel the newfound confidence blossoming in me, like a flower breaking through the surface after winter's chill. With this shift in mindset came a desire to take proactive steps in my role. I began arriving at work a little earlier, giving myself time to prepare mentally for the day ahead. I started reviewing often overlooked customer feedback, recognizing that addressing concerns would not only help our customers, but also guide me in improving my skills as a representative. Facing customer complaints became not a chore but a challenge I was eager to take on. One particularly sunny Tuesday, a new change clarified for me just how much I had evolved. I received another notification about an upset caller, this time a man named Mr. Keller. The old me would have felt an overwhelming sense of dread and self-doubt, fearing that I would disappoint him. But instead I took a deep breath, reminding myself of all that I had learned. With determination bubbling within me, I picked up the phone. "Hello. This is Emily from Bright Tech Solutions. How can I help you today?" I spoke with clarity, allowing the warmth in my voice to shine through. Mr. Keller immediately opened up about his frustration with a delayed order. Instead of growing anxious, I found myself actively listening, asking questions to gain a clearer understanding of the situation. He could hear the sincerity in my tone, and gradually, his irritation lessened as we talked. We worked through the issue together, and by the time the call ended, Mr. Keller thanked me for my patience and understanding. I could barely contain my excitement. It was gratifying to see how effectively I was applying what I had learned about empathy and communication. I smiled to myself, knowing this wasn't just about resolving an issue. It was about building a connection. Inspired by my interaction, I decided to implement a small strategy that could benefit my coworkers too. The next day, I gathered a few colleagues over lunch. "I have an idea," I started, sharing my thoughts on creating a weekly discussion group focusing on customer interactions. "We can share stories and strategies that helped us overcome difficult calls. It will build our confidence and improve our teamwork." Their enthusiastic responses made my heart swell with pride. Everyone was eager to get involved. I could see the energy shifting within our team. We gathered each week, creating a safe space to share successes and struggles. Whenever I spoke, I felt just a bit more comfortable after every session. Hearing my peers opening up reinforced the idea that we were all in this together, continuously learning and supporting one another. I was no longer the timid person who feared judgment. I had a voice and a place among my teammates. This transformation extended beyond the workplace. I began to apply my newfound persistence to my personal life as well. Fear of failure started to lose its hold over me. I began trying new hobbies, such as cooking and painting. I made small but meaningful efforts to embrace challenges that once would have intimidated me. Rather than evading the unfamiliar, I welcomed it with curiosity and excitement. I discovered that each attempt, even if it didn't go perfectly, brought with it lessons that shaped my journey. My perspective had shifted. Challenges were not barriers but stepping stones toward growth. The shift in my mindset did not happen overnight, but it evolved gradually through each interaction, each customer call, and every moment of reflection. I realized that confidence flourished not through perfection, but through perseverance. As I moved forward, I embraced every lesson learned, knowing that my journey was just beginning. As the weeks rolled into months, I found myself thriving more than I had ever thought possible. My experiences at Bright Tech Solutions had shaped me not just as an employee but as a person. Each day, I stepped into the office feeling more confident, energized by the connections I was forging and the challenges I was surmounting. I had transformed not by eliminating doubt, but by facing it, learning to find strength in my vulnerabilities. One sunny afternoon, I prepared for the quarterly team meeting, eager to present our progress alongside my colleagues. In the past, I always felt nervous about public speaking, but this time, I welcomed the opportunity to share insights. Throughout the meeting, I contributed positively, offering suggestions based on our weekly discussions and customer feedback. My perspectives were well received, and I noticed sincere nods of approval from my peers and Ms. Thompson. When it was finally my turn to speak, I stood tall, a confident smile on my face. Our focus on improving customer interactions has helped us build relationships and resolve issues more effectively, I stated clearly. I shared specific examples of how the support sessions had benefited not just individual performance but team morale. The room was receptive, and my teammates chimed in with their thoughts, creating a collaborative atmosphere that spilled over with understanding and solidarity. By the end of the meeting, I looked around at the familiar faces of my team. They were no longer just coworkers, but friends and allies in this journey. I realized we were all learning together, making progress as a collective force rather than as isolated individuals. I felt incredibly grateful for this newfound sense of camaraderie. That night, I returned home with a lighter spirit, and for the first time in a long while, I truly felt a sense of belonging. In addition to my work at Bright Tech, I began exploring the world beyond my comfort zone. I attended workshops to enhance my skills, and each class refined my strengths while revealing the areas where I could still grow. From public speaking to customer service techniques, I was becoming a sponge for knowledge. The excitement of learning had overtaken the fear that had once stifled me. Every new lesson added layers to my confidence and fueled my determination to keep pushing forward. Outside of work, my personal relationships flourished too. I initiated conversations with friends I had previously felt shy to approach, and welcomed new connections into my life. I learned to openly express gratitude and appreciation, small gestures that brought warmth into my interactions. The confidence I built at work spilled over into my everyday life, enabling me to embrace opportunities and face challenges with resilience. Most importantly, I recognized that growth is ongoing. I had come so far, yet I knew I was only at the beginning of my journey. I allowed myself to be patient, remembering that the path ahead would come with its own set of trials. Instead of fearing obstacles, I started to see them as gateways to new experiences. My resolve grew with this perspective. I would hold on to the lessons of persistence and openness, no matter where my career journey led me next. The weight that had once burdened me with self-doubt had transformed into a buoyant hope for the future. I imagined myself several months down the road, exploring new avenues within my role, perhaps even taking on leadership opportunities as they presented themselves. The thought excited me, making me eager for what lay ahead. With ideas swirling and a heart full of courage, I stepped into each day with optimism. I had learned that it was okay to stumble and grow. Every challenge was a chance to learn. As I looked forward, I did so with a heart full of hope, ready to embrace whatever came next in this ever-evolving journey of life and work. The best part was realizing that I was capable of navigating any challenge, one step at a time.